welcome back to another episode of 10 Under 10, the GPP podcast, where I tell you my 10 favorite plays on Draftkings and Fanduel, 5 from each, all projecting under 10% owned to help you take down a GPP this week. Can you believe that we are already in week 11? It is crazy. Before we get started here, make sure that you click the like, click the subscribe if you want to have this content keep coming at you free and not behind the paywall. I tell you what, if we get I don't know, let's say if this thing cracks 3,000 views, we've been in that 2,000 range. If we get 3,000 views, I'll turn the ads off for next week because I know how annoying that is. Once again, if you're an our DFS Army VIP, make sure that you are using that code UpNorth. That gets you 10% off VIP membership, gets you access to everything that we do here at DFS Army, whether it's football, NBA has been crushing. You know what's really been crushing though? NHL. It's in the game. They the tattooed freak VA has been hitting goal scorers every single night. Those guys are cashing like crazy. Our props guys have been crushing as always. So make sure that you use that code UpNorth to get you that 10% off. But let's talk about week 11. Actually, let's talk about week 10 first. It was nothing to write home about. Russell Wilson, good pick. I thought he played pretty well. Ronnie Stevenson wasn't terrible. Jordan Addison just got completely forgotten about. This says Kate Otten TE1. Kate Otten was not the TE1. He was the TE10, I believe, for the week. And then we went over to FanDuel, and it was a struggle bus over there as well. Outside of my boys, the Vikings on defense, right? So not a lot to write home about, but you know what? You have to remind yourself at times that it's not an every week thing that you're going to smash, especially when you are trying to find the low owned plays. The chalk is the chalk for a reason. And you know what? Once in a while, you're going to smash. More likely than not, you're probably going to crush. That's why DFS is what it is, right? But you guys know my motto, first or last. I ain't here to make cash. Last week we were last. This week we are looking to be first. So let's get to it on DraftKings. I'm going right back to the well with Russell Wilson. He has been outstanding. 5.6% owned, 5,900. We know that good QBs are chalk 90, and they're good plays 90% of the time, right? It's good chalk to eat usually. So I do like going to Russell Wilson here, though. Performed well against the Commanders. He's going up against the Ravens, who have really struggled. Okay, didn't quite hit his ceiling last week against the Commanders. 2 touchdowns. Was fine, right? I think we play him with George Pickens. If you want to get crazy, you play him with Mike Williams. But I think that, a guy that's got 30-point upside with low single-digit ownership is somebody that I want to be involved with all the time. Speaking of guys that I want to be involved with, Kareem Hunt for the Kansas City Chiefs. I love the matchup here against the Bills. They've had a real struggle against the run, also against pass-catching running backs. Pacheco's out again, right? So we know that this is going to be Hunt's backfield. I think 20-plus carries. I think 5-plus targets. The price and ownership combo is just far too low. I think he smashes this week. I'm willing to say potentially multiple TD game, in a game that I think could really be a shootout here. Even though the Chiefs' defense is much better, I do think that we could see shootout potential this year. Elijah Moore, 9 targets last week, only brought in 3, but the potential is there for a big game with your boy Jameis. The Saints without Lattimore are even more mediocre than they were before. I did write in here that he doesn't need to do much to pay off his salary. That has been sort of the black curse or the curse of death or whatever, or the jinx of death. I don't even know, but it's been not good when I've said that lately. It's been more often than not that a player gets 0 when they really don't have to do much to hit value. So, I'm willing to go there again on Eli Moore at especially only 4,300. These salary saving wide receivers. I talked about it in the article that, most of the time we want to eat that chalk at running back. Quarterback is usually fairly flat. You're not getting a ton of leverage on anybody, but wide receiver is, I think, where we can really find a piece that can get us over the hump in GPP. Elijah Moore is one of those guys. Another guy is Ricky Pearsall. Get shot, score tutties, right? That's what we do in the NFL lately. Pearsall fulfilled that last week. Returned from a gunshot wound after an attempted robbery faster than DJ Chark did with a groin injury. He's averaging 5 targets a game. Seahawks aren't very good. Purdy's going to be chalk. He's going to throw the ball. You might as well play one of the better receivers there. Now, I talked about getting some leverage in GPP. You can get some real leverage on Deontay Johnson. All right. Hear me out. I get that he played 5 snaps last week. But you have to think that they made the trade for a reason, and he is going to at some point here usurp guys like Tylan Wallace from OK State as the wide receiver 3, right, in this offense. So he's just too good. He's too good. It's not like Deontay Johnson is a bad football player. He hasn't caught up in this offense. I think some point in the next couple of weeks here, he's going to smash. I'm willing to take a chance on it, especially at under 0.5% owned, $4,800, mega cheap. Like what I would say, much more likely to zero than anything, but the upside is there, right? We know who Deontay Johnson is, and it's a revenge game. Revenge game narrative. Let's go, people. Switching over to FanDuel here. Another guy that I think is really intriguing this week is Anthony Richards, right? We know who Anthony Richards is. He's going to hurl the long ball. He's going to run the ball. He's going to turn it over. He's going to throw some really bad passes, and he's going to throw some passes that make you go, whoa. Right. So the upside is massive. The floor is super low. He's like, but the price is maybe what I like the most. 6,400 on FanDuel. They didn't price him up like he was going to start here. Otherwise, he'd be about $800. You can do a lot in your lineups, or $800 more, about 7,200 would be my guess. You can do a lot with that $800 in your lineup. It looks pretty good with Anthony Richardson. Do not hate the run him naked here. You can play like a Josh Downs, somebody like that if you want to. But yeah, I think Richardson has massive potential, especially at this price. If he was more expensive, I'd say you have to pair him with the receivers, but you do not have to in this case. Another guy that I actually don't mind going on low owned with, some upside here is Derek Carr, right? Returned 2 weeks ago. No weapons. He's still putting up, reasonable scores. And I think that he has 25-30 point upside at 7,200. Awesome, right? I think you don't have to pair him with anybody because who's he going to throw it to? We just don't know. It could be Mason Tipton. It could be Taysom Hill. It could be Juwan John. Like, there's a million guys that he could throw it to. So I really I don't hate just throwing Derek Carr in there and then building the rest of my lineup with the guys who I think are the best plays. We've seen that take down GPPs time and time again lately. We are seeing less correlation take down these big GPPs than ever because people are, again, just picking and choosing, and we've got the optimizers who are just trying to build the best possible and the highest possible total, which again I think is a good strategy even if you're hand building, right? So Derek Carr on his own, think that he's got big time GPP upside. One of my favorite plays this week is Aaron Jones on the road. He is over 10% owned on DraftKings. My guess is he probably gets there on FanDuel by the end of this thing, but Titans are pretty good on pass D. We've seen Darnold turn the ball over multiple times recently. I think the Vikings are really going to pound the rock here between the tackles with Aaron Jones, who's been great, right? His yards per carry isn't ideal, but I think he's going to get 20 touches here. He can easily get over 100 and a tutty. 7,800, that probably gets it done, right? Don't worry about the Q tag. Bruised rib last week, came back, played, ran like a 3rd and 3 from the goal line, which is a pretty rough and tumble play. So don't feel like he's not going to play. I think he'll be fine here against the Titans. Like I said, I think the Vikings try to control the clock. They run the ball a ton. He's going to get a ton of volume. DeAndre Hopkins 2 weeks ago showed us what he can do in this Kansas City Chiefs offense, and I really think that the Chiefs have to start throwing the ball more and more effectively if they are going to compete. This Bills game is going to be a shootout, in my opinion. And I think that D-Hop is going to be the primary recipient as Travis Kelce gets the double teams and they just really focus on what he is doing. And it's going to open up things for D-Hop underneath or deep, right? Love him. We saw that 20-point game 2 weeks ago. Last week, not as much against the Broncos, but the Bills are not the Broncos defense. The Bills defense is pretty mediocre this year, at least compared to previous seasons. So, and then finally, guy like leading the Chargers in first reads is Will Dissly, meaning that Herbert is looking his way right away every single time. All right. So we're averaging just under 7 targets a game over his last 4. Crazy. That's wide receiver 1 volume at $5,400 on FanDuel and 6.4% ownership. Hammer game Sunday night. Love that. You know how I want to see my lineups climb on Sunday as the night game progresses, right? And everybody else has no minutes remaining and is falling back. So Dissly is my favorite tight end play of the week, core play for me on FanDuel, where he is only available because DraftKings does not have the night game. And I tell you what, I like the night game, guys. I think it's kind of fun to get back to this. This is when I started DFS years ago. We had this, and now it is back. So I'm kind of loving it this season. So that is what I got for you. Again, like, subscribe. I appreciate all the kind words in the comments. Hopefully we smash this week and hit a couple of #1 players at low ownership. Cheers, everybody. Have a great week.